I know we were talking about God, and we were talking about your interesting frame of what God would be, or how you could potentially somehow just slide your way into becoming God by dying.
Yes.
I'm going to probe a little further in a different direction here. If everyone was to all of a sudden know definitively that there was an afterlife, how do you think that would affect the world?
I think people would... I reckon you'd get those pranksters, you know. Those pranksters that would, not like purposefully die, but they would try and shorten their lifespan as much as possible, just so then they could basically shit other people up when they're a ghost.
Yeah, I mean, you're a bit of a dick if you do that, though.
Oh, 100%. But
I'm more working on... No, I'm working on the basis here of... Do you think if everyone all of a sudden knew that they were going to go to... Let's put it in the simplest of simple terms, just for the sake of the point. Heaven.
Yep.
Heaven or hell. Do you think it would cause anarchy or disrupt on Earth? Say newsflash, you're all going to heaven or hell. God does exist.
Mm.
How do you think that will affect the world when that news comes out? Or if that news was to come out?
There would be the people who knew they would do... People who knew they were doing wrong, they would very quickly change attitude, I reckon. Because let's face it, no one wants to go to hell.
No.
It's not a very good place, so I've heard. But I reckon the people who are doing wrong and know they're doing wrong, they would definitely swap their attitude very, very quickly. I reckon people wouldn't be as bothered if they got sent to hospital, for example, because they'd be like, oh, it's fine, because I could just go to heaven and I can just live my life peacefully up there.
Mm.
But that would mean that because of the amount of people just not really bothered about how they go about their lives, you could view it from a point where maybe costs of healthcare would increase massively, because resources would be running out faster from the amount of people that aren't really taking much care of their lives. But that's only if they know they haven't done anything wrong to send them to hell.
Right, let's distinguish what it means to do something wrong.
Rape.
yeah. I mean, there's probably a bit more nuance to the argument than just rape. But...
Yeah, true. Any form of crime.
Yeah.
Any form of crime. Definitely any form
What's
of crime. Bank robbery, shooting, even the small things like breaking an entry.
I mean, I have to say, I'm quite glad that you're not the one that makes the rules on regulations. If you rape, you die. All the small things, i.e. armed robbery, aren't a problem.
Just theft.
No, but hang on. Right, let's get philosophical with it then. Because I'm sure you can distinguish the difference between the mother that steals because she needs food for her child and the person who walks into Montclair and steals a jacket because they want it.
Mm.
So would you punish those two people in the same fashion?
No.
Why?
Because one of them's dying.
No, they're not.
Starvation.
We're all dying.
Well, yeah, but one of them's not got the resources.
So you can, on that point, you can reliably understand that there is nuance and subtleties to why people do things.
Yes.
So what about the difference between someone who, for instance, you know, I've been harping on recently about Soft White Underbelly, the YouTube channel.
Mm. Yeah.
That YouTube channel has been particularly salient and important to me because of the reframe it has provided me on some of the most malignant people of society, or what we perceive to be malignant.
Yeah.
So, at risk of cancelling myself before I've even had the opportunity to
break through,
to break through, I shall say that I don't endorse any of what is about to be said, and I do think it's horrendous. But there was a rapist that went onto this channel, okay? Now, you and I and anyone watching this will immediately understand someone as a rapist as scum of the earth and the most condemnable of person. Yeah. The guy that came onto this had, for what to me actually ended up being a really, really interesting insight. Now, for context, this bloke who'd come on, who was a convicted rapist and a murderer, he had lost, I believe, both of his parents at a young age, and before that young age, before they had been lost, I'll tell a lie, he'd lost his father and his mother had stayed. At a young age, from literally about 3 onwards perpetually, he was raped by his parents. They said that this was the way that you showed someone that you loved them. After that point, he then went on to he raped his mother, in fact. Now, I know, I'm totally aware this sounds fucking awful, and it is awful. But among being someone who was born into a poverty-stricken household with a lot of carnage, and not to mention being from a young age told that the way to show someone you love them is by raping them, when you think of it in these terms of what someone is brought into this world understanding and the influences that are put upon them, I think it's different when you look at it with that context in mind. I'm sure you could understand that if you saw someone as a rapist who had been raped as a child and from 3 had been told this is the way you show someone how you love them, well, the only reason that you know how to show someone you love them is because someone told you how to do it. Yeah? So if someone told you something different, then you would act differently. It's with this point that I probe and pose to you the nuance of crime. Because I'm a firm believer of the deterministic perspective, and on that, I do think we are, in many respects, a product of our circumstance. I think that person who's a rapist and who should pay for that in terms of society should also be recognised as someone who absolutely dealt or was given the short straw when it comes to genes and circumstance. And if he wasn't born into the world he was born into, he wouldn't have done the things that he did. And on that point, how unlucky is it that he was born into the world he was born into, and we all have... I mean, the chances of you being born, if I am not mistaken, I think a very interesting way of putting this that I saw was that if all of Ireland's 7 million population were to roll a trillion-sided dice, them getting the same number, all of them getting the same number, would be the equivalent odds of you being born.
It's very rare.
When you put that in, thank you for the lowdown on that one, the analysis there. That's
You're
what
welcome.
I come here for. When you put that into perspective, how unlucky is it for you to have such a astronomically low chance of being born, and then being born into that world of all worlds?
Very unlucky.
Yeah.
Everyone obviously has different lives. Everyone is raised differently. Everyone has different views and opinions on everything. Everyone goes about different opportunities and different difficulties their own way. But, like, from my perspective, like, it's no disrespect to whoever this person is, if they're watching, that is. I just don't know what goes through their mind. Like, obviously they've seen the things, that's how they've been, not necessarily been raised, they haven't been raised to do it like that.
They have. It was exactly how he was raised. He was raised with the impression that doing what he did was acceptable. Which obviously, on a societal basis, we know it's not. It's totally condemnable. But that's not what he was told.
Wow.
And given how impressionable and malleable the human brain is at a young age, most of the way that you interact with the world now will be in some way, direct or indirectly linked to what you learnt as a child. I was speaking to someone recently about whether they're a people pleaser or not and why that is. And I said, when you actually trace that back, it's quite a linear progression from child that wants attention and hasn't been getting attention for whatever reason to becoming a people pleaser. Because you work out, people often will do one of two things with this. They'll either become very grandiose and sort of try and take up as much space in the room as possible by just being the big influence in the room, or they'll be a people pleaser. Because if you please everyone that you meet, then everyone's going to like you, and if everyone likes you, they'll stay around you and you'll get attention. And my point is, we are all in many respects the recipient of our outcome, and in some instances the victim of it, or circumstance rather.
Yeah, definitely. I would say I'm a people pleaser. Obviously not, but obviously not in a sense of like, oh, people stick around, like blah blah blah. Because I don't care if people don't stick around. Like it's up to them if they stick around or not. It's more of like I just want everyone to be happy.
So why do you think that you learnt to become a people pleaser then?
I think it was just from my mum, because my mum obviously takes a lot of shit, like as a person. Obviously, everyone takes a lot of shit, but obviously, like, she doesn't, like, fight back, if that makes sense. And that's sort of me. Like, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Like, and I'm a very forgiving person as well. As I'm sure you know, I'm a very forgiving person. Sure. Like, it takes a lot for me to hate someone. Like, you'd have to probably actually kill my mum for me to actually hate you. And obviously, because no one's done that, I don't actually hate anyone. I just sort of, I don't know. I just sort of have like calm feelings about everyone, like on the like as their own. It's, just people just don't really. I don't know, like. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just.
Would you say that you, even if someone hurts you, you just don't want to hurt?
Yeah, I just don't want to hurt them. Because I know that if someone's just hurt me, they're clearly in a very fragile state of mind themselves. And the last thing I want to do is do something or say something that will just tip them over the edge, where they could go off and just do something absolutely ridiculous. So
you feel quite responsible for your actions then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I need is for someone to go on a psychotic breakdown because of an act of actions that I have done. And obviously, like, it's unavoidable. Like, you're gonna do something, whether it's by accident or on purpose, which will make someone go in a psychotic breakdown. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, it's unavoidable. You're not gonna not do that to someone.
Well, let's just clarify here. Not everyone will go into a psychotic break.
Not everyone will go into psychotic breakdown, but
you may well put someone into a hurtful position.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, I don't think it's ever anyone's aim to do that to other people. Because I think it depends on the person. It depends how the person views you as a person. If they don't like you, they'll do everything they can to take you down.
Not always.
Not always, but there will be some people who will try and do everything they can to take you down as a person.
Yeah.
Destroy your life, destroy your future. They'll try absolutely anything. And unfortunately, there are people like that, which, let's be honest, no one really likes those sorts of people. But I've lost track of where I was going.
You were speaking of why people do things, why people that choose to be hurtful towards other people do what they do.
I think they also just do it just sort of out of maybe a bit of revenge. Something we talked about the other day with revenge. You can go about revenge in two different ways. Obviously, like how we were talking the other day, where we spoke about you can go to the gym as a form of revenge, but obviously, like, don't hold on to it for too long because it's just going to keep you stuck mentally. Or you'll go about it in a way where you will actually just try and physically get revenge on them.
Yeah, so let's for the sake of the point, let's focus on that part.
Yeah. Physical revenge is, in my opinion, one of the most spiteful things that anyone could do to someone.
Define physical revenge.
So, I say physical, it could be like verbal. That's what I mean under like physical. Like literal revenge, like going straight towards you. Nothing subtle, like all guns blazing. Like doing anything they can to you to take you down mentally, physically. And I think it's probably one of the most spiteful things anyone could do to someone. Because think about how much of a toll it's going to have on someone's life if you're harassing them every fucking day. Whether you see them at work or whether it's online. Because with online, people can just make an unlimited amount of accounts. Yeah. And granted, Instagram has this good feature where it's like any accounts that get made on the same device or that are linked to the original account will get blocked as well. Great. Like, that's great. But it doesn't stop them from, I don't know, at a push, getting a new phone or emailing you or using a different messenger, like Facebook Messenger or something like that. Or even to the extent of something like TikTok. Just constantly making accounts, sending you messages. And it could be the same for things like WhatsApp as well.
So, as to not stray too far off the course here, I want to keep this in line with the sort of the underpinnings of revenge, right? How much empathy would you place at the feet of someone who is vengeful and hurtful?
They must be in a very dark, difficult situation in their own life, which they are struggling to actually project themselves. So they're not talking about how they feel within. Which, as we know, in this day and age is very important. It's important you do something like that because if you don't, it will just blend and it will just stir and stir and stir and stir and get worse and worse and worse. And then eventually it's all going to come out in one big ball of, like, fucking rage, tears, all sorts.
In the form of, quite possibly, malignant revenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stress and anger just built up into one.
Would you be able to look at someone who has done something hurtful to you and understand that the person who is hell-bent on hurting someone else is not living a good life?
Someone's done something to me, and I know that they're not living a good life.
No, if someone had done something horrendous to you, if someone had been really hurtful to you, are you able to grasp the fact that people don't just do that? People do that when they are specifically hurt. People don't do that for a laugh.
No, they don't.
And what I would say on this point, and it's something that as I've encountered more and more instances, both with myself and with other people, is no one does anything without it being in some way, shape or form linked to trying to be happy.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything we do is for that purpose. Yeah. And I think we can lose touch or control of what actually makes us happy. For instance, like when someone becomes a drug addict, they assume that will make them happy. That's why they do it.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, as goes the throes of addiction, it doesn't actually work that way. But the mind of the person who is doing it thinks that it does. And it's the same for someone who does something hurtful, is they think that it will make them better.
My views on that would be, I've said this to people before. I've had people saying, oh, like, can you help me get this? Can you help me get that? And I've said, and I'm like, why?
Get this, get what?
So I get illicit substances.
Oh, okay.
And I've said to them, why?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, it's because I feel really shit, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you do know this is only going to make you feel good for a short period of time, and then you're going to get back to square one, and possibly even worse.
No, it will be worse.
And I've said that to people, and they're like, no, it won't, like, trust me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, you will just do a full loop and go even deeper into the place you were in before, because you'll have another thing to be sad about. You'll be sad about the fact that you're not at that high that you were at 10 minutes ago. Like, you're going to hate yourself for that. And then at the same time, it's just not even worth it, because then you're going to be running out of money, and then because you're spending money on that consistently over and over and over again, and then you're going to be complaining about how you have no money for food and drink and just the standard stuff that keeps us alive and functioning. You're not going to have enough money to afford water eventually.
James, I think you're reaching just a touch here.
It's an ongoing effect.
I would err you closer toward the side of what it does to the mind rather than what it does to the bank account.
Yeah, I mean, drugs can cause psychosis.
No, they can't.
Well, they can.
No, they can't. Drugs can't cause psychosis, but they can cause mental turmoil.
Yeah.
I am, and I should take this time to make this point, as someone who will continue to be a somewhat leaning in the direction of advocation of psychedelics. I can totally understand and absolutely agree that drugs can be a terrible thing. They absolutely can be. Yeah. And I mean, specific ones, I think something like cocaine, I think immediately falls into the category of just being my understanding of whether it is worth the attached risk is whether there is a benefit within. I don't think cocaine has anything to do with that. I think cocaine is specifically for the intensive purpose of having a good time, and it often doesn't end in a good time. What the drugs that I'm talking about here would be something like mushrooms, where there are therapeutic values within that, or something like, and the point I shall make here for the fact that it is the drug that I am personally as I say, I shall say leaning towards advocate rather than advocate, because I totally see the negatives, and I shall move on to those in a brief moment. Something like MDMA, I see utility in many respects with that. I think when you look at the PTSD studies that have been done with regard to war veterans and how MDMA has played a critical role in that, I think there is a great deal of utility in that. I also think for someone like me who has had their scenarios where their propensity for love and their just some underlying parts of their world, like a feeling of insufficiency, that have been quite reasonably eradicated as a result of that change of state, I feel that is valuable. I also feel, as someone who shall not keep my cards close to my chest on things that I am passionate about, going out for a night in moderation and having a wonderful time, I don't see a problem with that. I think that is a good thing. Yeah. I would say, on the point of MDMA, to really, really, really underline it, because I don't want to be saying, hey, look, this is wonderful, there's no bad things to it. There are. If you did that too often, you would have a shit time. You'd fuck your brain up, and you would really cause yourself... MDMA is not neurotoxic in itself, but it is if you do it a lot. And also, I mean, it for the very reason as to why you have the ecstatic feeling, that what goes up must come down, and that is what comes down is your ability to release serotonin. So essentially your ability to feel content just gets totally shot. So on that point, drugs can be a horrendous thing on that. But let's link this back to what it was that we were saying beforehand when it comes to people choosing destructive behaviours like revenge, or in this instance, drug use, and let's get that reframing of sort of why it is that people do this, and how empathy plays a role in this, or how our empathy can play a role in that.
In the role of like.
In the role of dealing with people like this, of why someone is the way that they are on that point.
I'd say have a little bit of a reflection time with them.
What if someone's not willing to do that?
Then doesn't necessarily. Well, I guess true. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that has to be reflecting, because the last thing you really want to be doing is dragging them back into the dark, which reflecting can do. I'd say reflecting is probably something you'd have to do when someone is mentally ready. Depends. That's what I would do. I would wait until someone's mentally ready before trying to go over the poor experiences that they've had and then dragging them back into it.
When is anyone ever ready to go through experiences of tremendous turmoil? Would you ever be ready to go into a conversation with someone if you knew that the way it was going to lead was towards tears and discomfort?
Well, tears. I guess tears are the best thing, because it's showing that you are releasing. Because, as I'm pretty sure you know, sometimes all someone needs is just a good cry.
Yeah, it helps.
I mean, I haven't cried in fucking ages. I could have cried on Saturday, to be fair.
Why?
Well, I won some money, didn't I?
Well, let's shelf the gambling addiction, and let's talk about empathy.
As we all know, it's definitely a good thing to cry.
But let's move this closer in the direction of empathy. I want to burrow into this with you, of if you were faced with someone who had done something vengeful, we are very quick to respond to that person with equal measure of aggression. We put iron toward iron. My point here would be, is there a place for understanding, like the person who is born into this world with rapist parents, that it is unfortunate for anyone to be in a position where they feel as though hurting someone is the right thing. Because for someone to be in the mindset where they think, I'm going to hurt someone, that person is not happy.
I would probably understand where they come from. It's important to get yourself into their shoes, definitely. Apologise for the position that they've managed to get themselves in.
Why should you apologise?
Because you're sorry for them.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Sorry. I went to probably say question, but I'd ask them why they did it to themselves. What drove them to the point where to make them do it?
People don't know, though. I don't think the point here is necessarily to the person themselves, but I think it's more toward I think if you deal with everyone that you come across with either kindness or relative ambivalence, I think that is a better way of integrating into society than it is to be either friends or enemies. I would say even people that are very irritating to me, I don't deal with them with animosity. I deal with them with indifference. Because I think that I have to remind myself when I come across someone that I'm not warm to, or I'm not fond of, should I say. I have to remind myself to this point that I don't think anyone intends to piss you off. And I think anyone who does, if they had a choice, wouldn't. I think if you take a girlfriend that chooses to do something cynical to you because you split up, that person wouldn't have done that if you didn't split up. Now, obviously, there are two people in a relationship, meaning that some things, as you called to earlier, sometimes you just hurt people. It's just the way of the world.
It's the way to move forwards.
Sometimes you have to hurt people.
Yes.
This was something I came to realise on a psychedelic trip, was people don't try to hurt someone. Or sometimes they do, but they're not. If they had the choice, that wouldn't be what they would do.
No,
people
100%.
just think that people think that an eye for an eye is the solution on this front. And as the saying goes that I adore, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. I think that no one tries to be hurtful to someone without wishing inherently that they didn't have to be.
Yeah. I think they sort of just get driven to that point.
Yeah.
Where they sort of have to, where they're like, well, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to, maybe, for example, get my future career or...
It's not even... It's just release, though, isn't it? It's the same way that you could be bound up with energy and annoyance, and your way of funneling that is going and watching a sunset or punching a punch bag. We just deal with it in different ways.
Yeah.
I think... It's so difficult to do because some people you can't help but just refute providing them with kindness because they've done something that's so hurtful to you. And don't get me wrong, this is really hard to do. To be able to look at someone and go, you've sincerely hurt me and I'm still going to try and deal with you kindly, that's really hard. And if you can't do it, that is no shame on anyone because it's hard.
Yeah.
But I do feel as though I think that the more anger and aggression that you put into the world, the more you're likely to get out of it. I think a lot of people would benefit from... I don't think a lot of people have the propensity or the capacity necessarily to continue being awful to people if people aren't being awful back. How much easier would it be for you to be a prick to someone if they were being a prick to you versus if they were treating you with respect and being kind?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You couldn't help but move in that direction.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. Because think of it as like on a football match basis. Someone does a bad tackle on you. You're going to want to get a bad tackle back on them to sort of basically show them, don't fuck about.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, exactly. You try and get it again.
Yeah, we've all done it before.
Yeah, we're all the centre back.
We are all that fucking brickhead centre back that just
when it comes to relationships, quite often. My point here would be, I think when it comes to, I suppose the encompassing point that I would like to make here is the value of being empathetic towards people who have done bad things.
Yeah.
Because I think, as Sam Harris puts it, if you and someone else was to be swapped atom for atom, place for place, you would be them. So, essentially, it is but odd and luck that you have not been born into a circumstance upon which you feel as though your actions should be the ones that they have taken. If someone does something, you know what I'm talking about here. If someone does something to hurt you, if you were to be able to rewind the clock with that person and say, can I undo the thing that hurt you? They would say yes.
100%.
That is what they want.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what they're trying to get.
Yeah.
Or they're at least trying to get even.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of people would benefit from, and it takes a man to do this, it takes a noble citizen, should I put it, to be able to be the bigger man on this point. But I think most of the time, a lot of our issues and a lot of our hardships with other people could be resolved by placing more kindness and understanding into the mix. Have I told you about the conversation that Kane and I have had?
Maybe. I can't remember.
Well, I shall say it for the sake of the point.
Yeah, go on, do.
as you will know, Kane and I fell out and no longer were friends. This followed what was to me quite an upsetting refusal to be involved essentially in my life, which came to a head when he didn't want to come out for my birthday, which after knowing someone for a long time I was quite hurt by. As a result of that, he and I ceased to speak. I didn't want to talk to him anymore. I sent him a text about a month ago, probably.
Yep.
Basically outlining to him why he and I no longer spoke.
Yep.
I said to him, the reason why you and I are not friends anymore, and the reason why we don't speak, is because you hurt me. Now, I understand that because you had your own life, and you had your girlfriend, and you had things that were important to you, that you might not have meant to do what you did. But I think it is only within the bounds of respect to tell you why you and I no longer speak.
Yeah.
I don't want an apology from you. I want you to know that for what it's worth, I don't dislike you. Because I don't need to dislike you. I know that you weren't... I know that he didn't mean to hurt me. He was being belligerent. He was just not thinking. And as a result of not thinking, he did hurt me. Now... my reason as to why I should let go of that annoyance is because he's not thinking about it, and he wasn't thinking about it then. So why should I think about it? And the point that I'm encapsulating this with is I think a lot of the time, the anger and animosity that we put towards people that hurt us would be better removed and placed with kindness, if for anyone's sake, ours. Because as a result of that, he and I liaised from that point, and he basically said, do you know what, I am sorry, I didn't mean to do that, and I hope you're well, and good luck with the podcast. And it was a very amicable conversation.
Yeah.
But as a result of that, I am no longer holding on to some residual anger and fury that I was holding on to. So in choosing to be kind, I have let myself be free.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time, the inverse of that is someone is hurtful to us, so we're hurtful back. That person forgets to be hurtful anymore because they move on with their lives, and we continue to harbour that pain.
Yep.
A lot of the time, the whole equation here could be changed just by being kind. Mm-hmm. Now, as I say, it's hard to be kind to some people, but for your own sake, for one...
just do it.
That would help. For their sake, it may well hurt. If you can say to someone, it doesn't matter what someone has done, if you can say to someone, look, I understand that I hurt you, and in an ideal world, I wish I didn't have to do that, but these are the reasons why I did. I hope you have a good life, and good luck.
Yeah.
At that point, I mean, this is something I've done twice, I would say now. When you do that, there's something that you prove to yourself that cannot be proven by being hurtful. You prove that you are someone of calibre. You prove that you are someone who is respectful and honest and sincere and an adult. Yeah. In many respects.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. There are people that I would say those things to and go down that route with. But I don't think that they would do the same, if that makes sense.
Do they need to?
Well, no, but I'd rather not be nice to... So I'd rather not do the thing that you did to Kane, not say the same words, but going on the same lines to someone, and them knowing that they will probably just shove it back in my face and tell me to fuck off.
Yeah, and for some people, they probably would do that.
Yeah, and I just don't see that worthy.
And that's totally fair. I absolutely understand that. It was one of my concerns with sending my messages, is I thought it will be very hurtful for me if that happened. Now, fortunately for me, on neither fronts it happened. But I do understand what you're saying, that if someone continued to act with malignance, it would be very difficult to take that as the win that it actually is.
Yeah, like there is definitely a certain someone
Yeah.
Very recently in my life, that I would say those things to. I would say, look, I don't hate you. I just wish you didn't do what you did. And
Carry on.
yeah, I just wish you didn't do the things that you did. Like, we both made mistakes.
Yeah.
We both made some poor decisions. But, like, just don't do it again.
Yeah, and for the case in question, I totally understand why you wouldn't want to do what you would like to do in many respects.
Yeah.
I do. I totally understand, and this is where it becomes difficult, because you go, well, why should you get to hurt me, and I am the one that picks up the slack? This is where the reframe of doing it for yourself comes into play. But equally well, on that point, this is where you toe the line, because some people just don't deserve to know.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be sort of the version of them that exists within your head is thought of in that way. There are people who I would like to speak to, but will never speak to about this point. There are people who have hurt me or upset me or have annoyed me who I would like to say what I'm saying to you to them. But for the reasons as mentioned there, some people just don't deserve it.
No, definitely not.
And some people are too far gone in terms of a relationship. As in, I don't mean being together. I mean as in having a back and forth between.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean within your own head that you couldn't sign off on this person as going, do you know what? I don't like you for the things that you did, but I understand why you did them. And I'm sorry that you felt that way.
Yeah.
Because my point here would be, I don't think we should live in a world where we wish harm upon anyone.
No, definitely not.
And it's hard when the person in question is someone that has brought harm upon us.
Yeah. I think even at the end of the day, if someone brought harm upon me, it would just go with like how my personality is. Like, I don't want to cause any harm to them.
Yeah, I mean, and you are very much a paragon of this. This is the way I've seen you do this a lot.
Yeah, it's just standard practice for me, basically.
Yeah.
It is my normal operating procedure.
But I'm sure you can understand that if you were to, though sometimes you might wish that you did this, if you were to respond to everyone in question with malevolence and bitter anger, you wouldn't feel happy for doing that. You'd feel angry and bitter and resentful. That's my point. I think I suppose in many respects I'm speaking hypothetically here, because I do totally agree with you when you say some people you just can't open the conversation with, because it's just not gonna. When someone acts a certain way, you can quite reliably predict the way they're going to be, because that's the person that they have shown themselves to be. I do think a helpful reframe for this comes in the form of, what would you do if it was your child?
You naturally protect them. I think once you have a child, you do need to have a level of selfishness.
Selfishness or selflessness?
Well, are we on about people towards your child or your child?
What would you do if your child was the one doing the hurting to someone else? How would you be to your child?
Well, selflessness.
You'd stick up for them.
You would stick up for them if they were being. Obviously, you'd stick up for them if someone was being horrible to them.
But let's, for the sake of the point, let's look at it from if they were doing it to someone else.
I would stick up for them, but if it got to a certain point where it sort of goes beyond or a little bit of a joke and a laugh, then I would tell them to basically shut the fuck up, because it's not right.
But you wouldn't do it that callously, though.
No, I wouldn't do it like that, but I'd tell them off. I'd tell them off. I'd make them
still stand up for them?
Yeah, I'd still stand up to them to a certain degree. Obviously, if it seems like a joke.
No, even let me lay it out in clear and dry terms for the sake of the point. Someone has done something intentionally hurtful to someone, and you know it. How do you deal with them as your child?
What, do they have a reason?
They're hurt.
Yeah, then I'd understand it.
You'd understand it?
Yeah, if someone punched my son's primary school girlfriend in the face, and my son did that to that person, punched the other guy in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'd be like, well, he's done it with him reason, hasn't he? No? Like,
What about
but like,
someone-
yeah, he shouldn't do it, but like...
What about if someone's not doing it within reason? What about if someone has done something that is otherwise that they shouldn't be punished for, and your child has decided to punish them for it?
Yeah, there, I'd draw the line there.
But how would you draw the line?
Ground my child?
No, but I would argue, consider my perspective and see how much of it resonates with you. I would stand up for my child in person, or in public rather, but my methods of doing so may well be to tell them absolutely that what they did was wrong. And if I knew what they did was wrong, I would tell them what they did was wrong. I wouldn't say that behind closed doors. I would let everyone know that was wrong.
Oh, like, yeah, like, definitely tell them it was wrong in public, 100%.
But
you also got to take some action as well behind.
But my action would be to wonder and work on why they felt they needed to do that. Someone to feel... I would hope that as a father I would raise a child in an appropriate enough of a manner to be able to let them understand that in order to feel well you should never hurt someone. So if someone did that, if my kid did that, I would want to know why they did it. I'd want to know what's going wrong, because something obviously is going wrong. Yeah. There's something has gone wrong. And on that point, when you look at... This is why I like this reframe for questions of moral ambiguity, let's say, is your child you want the best for. You want them to be safe, you love them. So when you realise that someone has done something awful, then you can understand that that child is obviously not feeling loved enough because they're hurt. And if they are hurt, then you feel it is your prerogative to do something about that. My point would be, anyone who hurts anyone is someone's child, which means that that person is, in many respects, worthy of being loved, and on that point, maybe hasn't been loved or taken care of in the way that they would like to have been taken care of, or has been in some way by the world misguided. This could not necessarily be as cut and dry as that. You could have two parents that love you wonderfully, but you don't pay any attention to the fact that they love you. That can happen. My point would be still, people that are hurting someone else for the intensive purpose of revenge and, in simpler terms, trying to make themselves happy, are doing that to try and get something that if you were their parent, you would do everything you can to give them.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
So, with that in mind, would you deal with your child with abhorrence and detest if they did something hurtful to someone else, if it was your child that did it?
Say that again, sorry.
If your child was hurtful to someone else, particularly hurtful, would you deal with them with abhorrence and detest?
Well, no, because that's neglect.
So why would you do it to anyone else?
Exactly. Because it's wrong.
Exactly. But my point is, I think there are few people, except unfortunately cases like the aforementioned 3-year-old fiasco. I think there are few parents in the world that would be able to say if their child did something horrendous that they would deal with them with detest and disgust. They might be disgusted by them, but they wouldn't deal with them that way because it's their son, it's their daughter, it's their kin.
Yeah. It's just the emotion.
And you couldn't help but think, my poor baby, what has gone wrong for you to do what you have done?
Yeah.
That is the case for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has that.
pretty sure everyone's parents have felt like that about them at some
Or
point.
let's say the exception that proves the rule in the parents who are not this way. You know, most, for the sake of the point, the parents who do love their kids, which I would like to say most parents do. Excuse me. Everyone is in that circumstance. And my point there is, if we wouldn't deal with our kids with the aforementioned ways, if we wouldn't do that to them, why do we think it's okay to do it to anyone else?
I feel like some people feel like it's a free-for-all.
Explain what you mean by that.
So it's sort of like everyone against everyone, or like the world's against them, and that sort of turns them into sort of like some arrogance.
Go on, keep going.
So I feel like some people sort of think that they get attacked personally, whereas they forget that things that they get caught up in, or incidents that they get caught up in, happen everywhere to everyone, all around the world at some point in their life.
Yeah.
It's not just them. I feel like they think, like I said, that everyone is out to get them, out to take them down. And it's going to be caused from something that they have experienced in their past that may make them feel like that. But the fact that they take that to a point where they feel as though it's happening in their adulthood, probably taking it a step too far.
Why?
Because, like I said, it shows arrogance, I find.
Why?
Like everything's about them.
But everything is about you in some respects.
In your own world.
You are the centre of your universe.
Yes.
Until you have a child.
Yeah, that's very true. In your own world, and in your own universe, it is about you. But if someone has a go at you for, I don't know, knocking over their shelf,
which is totally condemnable in my books.
No, we'll say I messed up a Tesco employee's...
Knocking over their shelf. You fucking knocked over my shelf! Yeah, it's a Tesco employee.
Say if, you know that where they do restocks?
Yep.
Say if I knocked over the whole fucking cart of, chocolate bars and everything.
Yeah.
And they started having a go at me.
Yeah.
If I was that person that would feel like they're out to get me...
Who are you in this?
I'm the person that knocked over the...
You're the pusher?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like some people... it's going to happen at some point. It's an accident. Right? So what you have done in your universe there is made a mistake. In the other person's universe, they're thinking, what the fuck is this guy doing? But I feel like to some people, their own mistakes, when they have someone have a go at them for their own mistakes, they feel as though that person that's having a go at them is out to get them.
They can't see that they actually instigated what's happened.
Yeah, they can't see that they have made a genuine mistake.
Yeah.
They think that it's everyone else's fault.
Yeah, and you sort of like moonwalked your way into quite a good analogy there, that people make mistakes whenever they do any of these sort of hurtful behaviours.
Yeah.
Someone doesn't mean... It's with intent, but not meant in some respects.
Yeah.
As you say, though, a lot of people who do knock over the shopping cart don't see that it was them that brought about the annoyance of the other person by their actions.
Yeah.
This speaks, though, to the point that is at the centrepiece of what we're saying. If two people decide to clash with one another because they both cannot be anything but offensive, it doesn't work.
No.
When does it ever work for two people to shout at one another and it become well? It might, for the sake of the point, the caveat of maybe you have an argument that reaches a happy conclusion.
Yeah.
But if you had two people go, why the fuck you knocked my car over? Well, because I wanted to. conversation doesn't work. No one comes out of this well. The conversation where someone goes, "The fuck are you doing? That was my car," and you go, "Mate, I'm so sorry. I'll help you pick that up."
Yeah. That's fine.
That's the end of the conversation.
Exactly.
It ends well.
Yeah.
That's my point when it comes to empathy. That if we can, I know that's slightly different to empathy, but when we can deal, so
you're showing empathy. It's just saying I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's true. When we deal with people with kindness, we solve more problems than we create.
100%.
And I think a lot of people assume that anger and frustration and harm must be met with the same thing. I don't think that's the case.
No, it's definitely not the case. There always needs to be a calming essence within someone out of the two people.
If it's to be solved amicably, yes.
Yes, and professionally, yeah, 100%. To stop it from going further, yeah, you need someone that has to be calm in those sorts of situations, that don't let their mind run away, that don't let their like aggressive thoughts get into place, thinking, oh, this person's said fuck you, I'm gonna swing him one. No, we don't need any of that. We just need I'm sorry for what I did, it was a complete accident, I didn't see it, or I didn't see you, or I didn't see what was going on, I was doing this, I was doing that, it's my mistake. And then just offer up some help. Yeah, I mean,
quite a lot of the world could be solved by just being modest enough to admit when you've made a mistake. Or Putin. Even... Say again?
Putin.
Yeah, if you're watching Black. Even if... There's a line to toe here when it comes to the aforementioned people-pleasing, that you don't want to apologise for things that don't warrant your apology.
Yeah.
But sometimes... it's to your benefit to do something similar.
Yeah. Because
in doing so, you take pressure off yourself that you don't need. I think a lot of the time, like, for instance, yesterday, I didn't get my mum a card because it was her birthday a few days before. I got her a card then, so I didn't think I needed...
Same here.
I didn't think I needed to get one.
Yeah, no, I didn't think I needed to get my mum one either.
That hurt her. My action hurt her. My knee-jerk response to that was when she said, "You get me a card," was to go, "Oh, I got your card." And I thought, before saying that, well, it's obviously upset you that I have done that. And whether I meant to do it or not, which I didn't, I have upset you. So therefore, it is now, I should at least try to help. That doesn't mean you're people-pleasing. That means that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time we could do something similar to that, where we could offer some form of consolation, even when someone doesn't necessarily deserve it, even if that comes across as saying to someone, if someone, for instance, quite a good example actually I feel here could potentially be, I was riding my bike on the pavement because I don't like going on the roads because I don't want to get hit by a car. And I went to a bus stop, and there was a man standing right in the middle of the pavement intentionally because he saw that I was on my bike. So I stopped. I said, "Excuse me," and he said, "Do you know more people are hit by bikes on the pavement than cars hit bikes on the road?" He was saying that more people basically were done harm by a bike on the pavement than a car to a bike, which, without the numbers, I know is bullshit.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that.
But my knee-jerk reaction to this person was the same defensive mode. I thought I was very close to going, "What the fuck are you on about? Get out of my way." And I didn't do that. I said, "Oh, my apologies, excuse me," and carried on. And that was it. Now, don't get me wrong, there was plenty of brewing annoyance within me of thinking, I do wonder what your face would look like on the pavement if I hit you with my bike as I turned around to go back.
Respectable.
That's not the point, though, of whether you... It's not losing that feeling. It's just portraying it out to the world.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time, we think that if our initial response is annoyance or sort of inherent defence, that's what we need to project to the world. And my point would be, almost invariably, you would do better for yourself, if anyone, to choose to be empathetic.
Yeah, 100%. You get yourself out of a lot of sticky situations.
You get yourself out of a lot of places that if you didn't have that take, you would get yourself straight into. Yeah. There was an argument avoided yesterday by me not being defensive towards my mum.
True.
It was one avoided because it didn't need to be there. Yeah. So it didn't need to happen, so it shouldn't have done. So it didn't.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it's an interesting topic, that. It's yeah, I always got the safe route for those sorts of things. I just can't be bothered to argue. What's the point in arguing?
Exactly.
There's no need.
Exactly.
Unless there's like a valid reason to. But even then, there's a very slim chance it's going to be valid.
No. Sometimes there are. Sometimes people are deserving of a flare-up.
Oh, yeah.
But even then, you look and you go, are you even worth my time? Is it even... and if you ask yourself when you get into an argument, am I actually... a phrase I enjoy to apply to life is, does it grow corn? Meaning, is it useful? If I argue with someone, am I doing it because I feel as though there is a possibility that my words can come to a resolution, as in me and this person can go, right, as a result of what you've said, let's put that into action, let's work forward with this. Is that what I'm trying to do, or am I trying to blow off steam? Almost invariably, you're trying to blow off steam.
You're blowing off steam.
Unless it's with your partner, and you can actually grow or change something as a result of the argument, that's different. But a lot of the time, we have one-off spats with people where there's no through road. You're just trying to blow off steam. If you want to blow off steam, go on a punch bag. And in the meantime, meditate.
Or meditate.
Because you will learn actually how valuable your time is and whether it's worth you doing it.
Just simple breathing techniques just calms you down.
Yeah, they do.
It's Wim Hof.
Yeah, Wim Hof is... You know Wim Hof?
I know who Wim Hof is.
Yeah, Wim Hof's quite cool.
Wim Hof is really cool. Really good breathing techniques to get your mind out of the gutter when you're shitting yourself in a cold shower.
Do you like cold showers?
I used to do them whenever I was at the spa. Just can't be bothered anymore. I know the benefits of them, but I don't know. The pool is cold enough.
That's fair.
As it seems, especially after the steam room.
Yeah, that's fair.
Getting in that pool is like fucking ice.
Yeah.
So, and then even then again, I go outside after in the steam room anyways, and that's cold. Yeah, that's cold enough as it is as well. So, I don't really see any need for me to do it. To be honest with you.
That's fair game.
I have enough hot cold therapy in itself.
Well, I'm going to say, for the sake of us both, on the point of how cold it can be, that it's far too fucking hot.
It's far too fucking hot in this room.
I can see the energy being sapped.
I am sweating buckets right now.
Just don't say that we don't put in the work for this. And on that point, I shall say, given the fact this is my channel and I am obliged to put the work in on this, I appreciate that you have done your bit to help me today, even as hot as it is. I do really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It is my own fault for wearing joggers.
It is your own fault for wearing joggers, fair, but it's a point of mine that I need to get some air conditioning in. But I don't think anyone gives a fuck. So I'm
drill a few holes.
Yeah, I'm just going to take the roof off and we'll be all right. On that point, see you in a bit.
Ciao, bambinos. Christ.
Salam alaikum.
Salam alaikum indeed.
Get out. Dependent on how